This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe from hackers. For example, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries, streaming services such as DAZN in Spain for those all-important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe if you use public Wi-Fi, such as a college or a cafe. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning that you can even share an account with friends and family. On top of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can even get your money back. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for just over €2 per month and up to 4 months free. Why not scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. What is up, my friends? How are we? It's Thursday night. You're very welcome along to the Late Night Agenda. Just want to let you guys know really quickly, there won't be a Late Night Agenda tomorrow night. I'm taking the day off, so there will be a couple of clips from the podcast coming out. Connor will be here in the morning with a video, but just as a heads up, I won't be live tomorrow. It's worked out that I can actually take a day off, so we're going to do it. Loads to go through tonight. We're going to be discussing the situation ahead of the Newcastle game. We're going to be talking about Jeremy Frimpong. We're going to be talking about plenty of articles that have been written over the past few hours, and of course we're going to be talking about where we are right now as a club. We do know the game on Saturday night, 8 p.m. kickoff. Just a reminder for everyone, we'll be live from 6:45 for that one. The preview for the Newcastle game will be out at 10:45 tonight, so pretty much just straight after this stream. So give it a watch if you get a chance. And look, loads to go through, so look, I'm not going to hang around. Let's just get straight into tonight's stream and see how we're all getting on. So, first super chat in said, hey Craig, any idea what to my mod? Do you mean what happened to my mod? No, unless I've done something with a fat finger that I didn't know. But to the best of my understanding, no, I don't know. I didn't remove any mods of people yesterday that I'm aware of anyway. So yeah, I don't know. Keane wasn't here with us yesterday for the watch along, so I'm sure it's something that can be sorted in the chat, unless it was a moderator thing that I don't know about. But certainly there's nothing, to my understanding, that happened. Any chance of English champions with the teams of the Champions League? Yeah, of course. I mean, just look how well the English clubs have done in the Champions League this season. I think it's only Newcastle, you guys reminded me yesterday, that we're outside the top 8. So you got to say the strength is certainly there for the English teams in the Champions League, where it absolutely wouldn't be absurd to think that one of the Premier League clubs could win it. In fact, of all the leagues that are in the competition, I would say the winner is probably more likely to come from the Premier League than any other league. But will that be us? Well, that remains to be seen, but we booked our place into the last 16 with a victory last night over Karabag, a comprehensive victory at that. So yeah, let's just wait and see what the prospects have in store. There's a playoff round coming up, and we'll roughly have a better idea who we're going to be playing against then. That draw for the playoffs is taking place tomorrow, by the way. And now we won't be in the draw, of course, because we're not in the playoffs. Thankfully, we booked our passage straight into the round of 16. So, loads to go through today. Ups and downs, positives and negatives, happy and sad. But let's start off with a little bit of good news, shall we? So the LFC Foundation posted to say this year's LFC Foundation Legends management team is here. Sir Kenny Dalglish will be joined by Jurgen Klopp as assistant manager alongside Ian Rush and John Aldridge. And they say get your tickets now. So do, again, support that if you can. If you want to go and watch the Legends in action, get yourselves over to the official Liverpool website and grab yourself some tickets. Right, so much to go through this evening from a footballing perspective. Let's start off with a report from Sky around Liverpool's unwillingness, shall we say, to act to bring in any strengthening in the defensive areas in this month. So they say Liverpool, Mark McAdam and Vinny O'Connor of Sky say Liverpool are not expected to enter the market for a new defender. The club do not generally make reactive moves in the transfer market, preferring to stick to their long-term plans, and they remain unchanged. Liverpool always remain alert to their targets becoming available, but they will not sign any player based on an injury as they still believe they have options to cover. Now, I do understand and will always understand not making a signing because you have an injury in a position that you feel relatively well stocked in. So I understand the club maybe not dipping their toes into the transfer waters for a right back. I totally do understand that. We've a longer conversation to have in the summer about our options at right back and how healthy they can stay. But the thing that stood out to me in that piece was the line that said, the club do not generally make reactive moves, preferring to stick to their long-term plans. Again, you just got to ask them, well, then what happened with the Mark A situation? Because whatever way you dress that up, that was a long-term target that became available and we didn't make a move for them. So that kind of sticks out to me as a frustrating one. But Simon Jones, he said that Liverpool will take stock of Jeremy Frimpong's injury before assessing whether there is a need to go into the transfer market this month. Well, this month is running out. As we know, there's only a few days left. So let's wait and see. I certainly don't expect a signing to arrive in at this particular moment in time, but you never know. We might get a pleasant surprise. Dark Ruby said, any news about an Isak return date? Nope. Not that I've seen, anyway. The club generally don't give out that type of information. You'll only really know when a player started to do some work on the grass, or, you know, a photo comes out with a player doing some work out there on the pitch. So, no, I don't know any confirmed return day for Isak at the minute. Salah is the best Premier League proven forward ever. Yeah, people say Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo because better on the eye. Hate that argument. It's like saying Ronaldinho is better than CR7 is better on the eye. I don't really know what to say, to be honest with you, mate. We know how good Salah is, has been, will be. We as Liverpool fans certainly appreciate how amazing he's been. And look, his numbers speak for themselves. Up there against the likes of Thierry Henry, he's got a better record. I'm not saying he's a better player, but anybody who undermines Mohamed Salah's brilliance is just a hater, like you've said. He's been right up there, and his numbers hold up with anybody in Premier League history. So if somebody doesn't want to give him credit, that's a very silly viewpoint to take. Else you say, Craig, honestly, I think by January Gay told us he was off the city. No other reason unless we have somebody better in mind. So in that scenario again, Stu, you're once again giving the club the complete benefit of the doubt, which I think we've figured out at this point, mate, between us, we're in a different mindset on that one. And you said you think, and that is kind of the whole point of it, is we don't know, right? So I don't know whether you're right, mate. You don't know whether me being annoyed about it's right. Because what we haven't done is heard from our sporting director. We mentioned this on the podcast earlier on, myself and Connor, when we were talking. It would be nice to hear a lot more, wouldn't it, from the likes of Richard Hughes on these type of things that aren't really an Arne Slot question. You know, I've been very vocal in my disappointment of Arne, but there is, of course, people above him that have questions to answer as well. And when it comes to recruitment, that isn't an Arne question. So this is the problem we have, though, Stu, right? You don't know the answer, I don't know the answer. So what we're doing is trying to figure it out, right? And we're guessing. But it would be a lot easier if we ever did hear from a sporting director and he didn't just lurk in the shadows. And this is one of my pet peeves here, is like, it doesn't seem to matter at this point. Whatever happens, tough shit, you're just going to have to roll with it and see how we get on for the season. And doesn't fill me full of optimism, bro. Doesn't fill me full of optimism. Craig, do you think we should buy Deo up in Meccano? No, I don't. This again would fall into the category of cheap for me, because we'd end up getting a player that's not as good as Canade, giving him a huge signing on fee and paying him probably big wages. No, I don't think Deo up in Meccano is good enough. And this is a long-term view of mine that goes all the way back to when we signed Ibrahim Canade from RB Leipzig. I always felt like we got the better centre-back. So it would just feel like we're weakening again to bring it up in Meccano. But look, I'm not saying everybody has to agree with my assessment of who's better. But no would still be the answer for the up in Meccano thing for me, mate. I don't think he's good enough. Wouldn't be surprised if Spurs won the Champions League and got relegated, said the legend. Well, this is what wound me up so much, bro, about the Andy Robertson to Spurs thing. So people laugh and said, Spurs aren't really our competitors. Well, they finished fourth in the Champions League phase, one place behind us, ahead of the likes of Manchester City. So like us, they might not be in any good form in the Premier League, but in the Champions League, they're right up there, and they finished in fourth place in the league phase. So this is why the idea of selling Andy Robertson mid-season just made no sense to me. And I'm still furious about that to this day. You know, whether the deal happens or doesn't happen, and it looks more likely that it probably won't at this point. But what type of joined up thinking is it at all to even contemplate selling Robertson to Spurs for 3 million quid? It's just the height of stupidity. So, yeah, you never know. Look, last season Spurs won the Europa League and were what, 17, 16, 17, something like that in the Premier League. So let's wait and see what happens. It's definitely an open competition, the Champions League this season, and I think there's no real clear front runner for me. People might say Arsenal, but look, Liverpool were in a similar position to Arsenal, and we've been in this situation before where we're chasing now 4 trophies, and it really does start to take its toll. And then, of course, Arsenal have the whole thing about the Premier League and trying to get over the line there as well. So I don't really buy into them being Champions League favourites personally. But if Spurs won it, I don't know, man. That does seem like a bit of a stretch. Keane said, with all the team fit, what would your starting 11 be? It's a really good question. I don't think I can give you a blunt answer because, again, it depends on the opposition. But it will probably be something like Alisson, Frimpong, Kanade, Virgil, Kirkes, Gravenberch, again, depending on formation, Gravenberch, McAllister, Wirtz, Salah, Ekitike, Isak, probably. Something like that. Yeah, but it would depend on the opposition. Depends whether we're home or away. Depends on what formation they play. And a few other bits and pieces. Jayden said both McAllister and his brother won man of the match in the Champions League games. Good. Nice. Good day for the McAllister family. Stargirl said, what about Benfica beating Real Madrid with 9 men? That was crazy. We stayed on last night and did the watch the end of that game as we were finishing up our watch along, and it was mad to watch it live, you know, because it was a very interesting scenario that was unfolding. So it was 3-2 to Benfica, and it felt like the Benfica players thought that was going to be enough to get them through. And then you see the goalkeeper was starting to fall down and waste time a little bit. And then word seemed to seep down from the Benfica executives up in the stand that no, you need another goal. This 3-2 helps nobody. The 3-2 would have seen Madrid still end up in the playoffs, and it would have seen Benfica get knocked out. So for them to then hurry up, get up the other end of the pitch, get a free kick, and then the goalkeeper gets sent up, score a header, which again pushed Madrid into the 9th spot and pushed them up above Olympique Marseille into the last place in the knockout stages. It was box office television, wasn't it? How mad is it though that, if I'm right in saying this, let me just double check it because I don't want to say something that's incorrect. So let me just really quickly check this back. Yeah, I'm right. So Marseille and PSV Eindhoven both didn't make it through. You know, that's crazy. Since PSV Eindhoven came to Anfield and beat us 4-1 and didn't make it through the league phase, didn't get into the top 24. That's mad. Even Marseille, it looks like De Zerbi's job could be under threat. There's some reports now that because they didn't make the knockout stage of the Champions League, he could be about to get fired. So, yeah, it was crazy last night, but an enjoyable end to the league phase, like I said, with that whole Madrid saga. Which LFC player would you most want dinner with? Oh, it's Hugo Ekitike. Yeah, it's definitely Hugo Ekitike at this point. I'm loving his sense of humour. Did you see his post basically calling Gakpo or Gravenberch Mark A? That was funny. So, ladies and gents, I want to go over something that I discussed on the watch along yesterday, but I know we've got, different audience members that drift in and out. But I want to go back through some information from an article yesterday. And if you bear with me, I'm going to go through all of this in one go. It's going to take probably 5 or 6 minutes, but bear with me because I think this is an incredibly insightful piece of writing that lays out the good and the bad for us this season and where we've fallen short and what the expectations should or maybe could be. The article is written by Laura Hunter, and I have to admit, I'd never read a piece of Laura's on Sky Sports before. Maybe she's a new journalist on board there, I don't know, but after this piece, I spoke about it yesterday and I'll speak about it again. An incredibly insightful piece and a good bit of journalism. So I'll give you little segments of the article, but it is there for you to read if you'd like to read it yourself on the Sky Sports website and app. So both Brentford and Fulham have managed as many wins overall this season as Liverpool, with 10. Slot's excuses for such a record, the latest of which was the wind at Bournemouth, only served to further eradicate the credit banked during last season's title-winning campaign. The Dutchman is now in the thick of the crossfire. But this one is really worrying. This lays out quite how bad it could be. Failure to beat Newcastle at the weekend, so even a draw. Failure to beat Newcastle at the weekend after hosting Qarabağ at Anfield would represent Liverpool's worst start to a calendar year since 1954, the last year in which we were relegated. What was once the best attacking force in the league has morphed into one of the easiest to nullify. Arne Slot's vision of control has Liverpool playing at a pedestrian pace, much simpler to contain, and far easier to predict. Dialing down the tempo of attacks has severely hampered big chance creation and shot quality, which has dipped below the league's average. Developing from deep in the build-up phase only works if there's movement in front, a way to dislodge opposition sides from their shape, and yet Liverpool have far fewer disruptor types in order to make this style work. The likes of Luis Diaz and the late Diogo Jota ran at defences in ways that created gaps for others to exploit. It drew teams out of position. This version, far more methodical, does not have the same magnetic energy. Liverpool have gone from the team who generated the most accurate switches of play across last season to now the one with the least. So again, from the most to the least. Mohamed Salah's drop-off is another unfortunate byproduct of that fact, and fewer goals all around is the end result. Then she moves on to speak about the lack of Liverpool's countering threat. And if pace is slower, it inevitably means the cut-through is less effective. Liverpool used to go from back to front in the blink of an eye, and they had a myriad of ways of doing it. Crucially though, what bound the strategy together was that everything was done with urgency. How can a side who ranks top for chances created with 278 equally place 9th for shots on target with 99? So we've created the most chances in the Premier League, but our shots on target ranks us only 9th. Liverpool are arriving in the final third just without the intensity of numbers needed to convert a chance into anything meaningful. Dominic Szoboszlai and Florian Wirtz are the only two players in the league to complete over 400 final third passes, and yet the goals for column is 21 lighter than it was at this stage last season. Creatively, Liverpool are stumped. Fast breaks used to be the pillar of identity. They scored a league high 14 times via that method last season. This season it stands at just 3. And where has the press disappeared to? Using possessions won in the attacking third as a measure, 85, Liverpool's ability or willingness to press is less coordinated than Spurs, Everton's and Leeds among several others. So our press is little to non-existent. Set-piece seriousness. Liverpool's set-piece record at both ends of the pitch is bordering on silly. No team has conceded more times from a throw-in, 5. Overall, only Bournemouth with 17 have conceded more goals from set pieces, excluding penalties, than Liverpool's 14. This team are not equipped for Premier League football, re-emphasised Jamie Carragher when discussing the topic on Monday Night Football. The numbers here are stark and have been all season. Liverpool sacked their set piece coach earlier this month. Each of Bournemouth's 3 goals from the weekend exposed a specific and systematic weakness. Goal number 1, the vulnerability to a simple ball over the top. Goal number 2, exposure down the weaker left-hand side. Goal number 3, susceptible to a basic long throw. Then Laura moves on to speak about Anfield anguish. Games at Anfield used to be bankers for Liverpool, she writes. The unique history, the intimidating atmosphere, the thrill of the football all played their part simultaneously. Of course, much of that still exists, but seems to be buried beneath a cloud of uncertainty. Since beating Bournemouth 4-2 on the opening day of the season, Liverpool haven't scored more than twice in any of the last 10 home games in the Premier League. They're averaging just 1.45 goals per game at Anfield this term, the lowest in a campaign since 2011-2012, while points per game places us 10th in the home form table. With 5 games at Anfield between now and the end of February, including meetings with Newcastle and Manchester City, the situation may actually worsen before it gets better. She finishes by saying, but there is still talent and hope. For all the ignominy of the above, Liverpool still have the talent needed to finish inside the top 4 or 5 places. Slot's arrangement of that talent must be more enticing to achieve it. And the actual nous used to see out games must also improve. When Liverpool have conceded a second half equaliser, they've gone on to lose 4 times this season. The Premier League average is just 0.9. £450 million worth of talent came through the door last summer, yielding the biggest wage bill of any side in the top flight. Ordinarily, albeit not always, that equates to success. For Slot, it has equated to mediocrity. Time to wise up or the Dutchman risks losing more than just the next football match. That was, in my opinion, folks, an excellent piece of writing from Laura Hunter of Sky Sports. And certainly opened my eyes to a few things that I didn't even recognise this season were as bad as they are. So, don't fall into the trap of getting blindsided by a 6-0 win against Karabakh to think everything's okay. It shouldn't move the needle either way. Our form in Europe this season has been certainly better than the league form. And it leads me to wonder what if. What if we hadn't been beaten 4-1 at home by PSV Eindhoven? If we had to flip that result? Or what if we had have won over in Turkey against Galatasaray? Either one of those two becoming a win would have put us into second place in the final table and given us that second leg at home guaranteed all the way through and separated us from Arsenal as well. So it is a mad old set of numbers, and certainly the form in the Champions League has contrasted to that of the league. I don't know if they're the one-off nights. I don't know if it's the Anfield atmosphere. I don't know what it is. But there is something tangibly a little bit different there for sure. And those 2 results alone, we had a pretty decent Champions League format campaign. 6 wins. Some good wins as well. Away against Inter Milan. A very credible must-win game against Marseille, like I said as well. So it is a bit of a mad one, isn't it? You know, clearly we are doing a little bit better in Europe than we are in the Premier League. But the reasons for that, well, I'm still none the wiser of, really, to be honest. Right, let's get back into your comments. Where was I up to? That one. We've done that one. This one. No Soboslai in your if everyone's fit 11 madness. Again, like I said, you're asking me a question. I'm kind of flying through loads of different things in my head. It's not like I've sat down and worked this out. And again, it did say it depended on the opposition, so hard to give you a definitive answer when I could give you 3 different answers for 3 different teams in 3 different scenarios. But you're right to pull me up if Szoboszlai isn't in it, because he probably should be in it and probably would be in it if I had my wits about me and a little bit more time to focus on the question. But you know, I answered it quickly. Trucking Song said, I think this rigid 4-3-3 formation is restrictive to any manager going forward with our recruitment. No way to satisfy Hugo and Isak. A problem. Well, I think we have altered from that 4-3-3 at times. It was definitely a 4-2-2-2 recently. But also we've got to address and be honest about our lack of available options in some areas. Now, we can talk about why we have a lack of available options in these areas. Some of it's down to injury, some of it's down to not recruiting enough, and some of it's down to the manager choosing not to play players. So there's enough blame there to go around for everybody, but there's one thing that just keeps standing out to me, and it's again something from a James Pearce piece, which I want to read out now. Because I find these days more and more when I see his name mentioned, I'm starting to cringe and feel a little bit frustrated by it. So, the Anfield hierarchy remained fully behind Arne Slot, writes James Pearce. No one is content with Liverpool's domestic form, and the next few months are huge. But there's an understanding for what he's had to contend with this season. There's also a firm belief they'll kick on. No, there isn't. Stop it. Just stop writing what we all know not to be true. There is no hard luck story for Arne this season. Like the injury thing that people have tried to play, it's nonsense. We don't rank near the top of the injury table. And it's not like any of the spine of our team outside of Isak, who was recent enough with his injury, has really stood out to us. Virgil hasn't been injured really. Alisson hasn't, other than a couple of games. So no long terms there. No long-term injury with Ekitike. No long-term injuries in the middle of the park. And the thing that sticks out to me a lot now is, do you remember one of the things that we praised, and I praised last season, was his ability to get us over the line. His ability to keep players fit enough that we won the league. This season, something has changed. We are seeing more injuries. And we're also seeing him ignoring 1/3 of his attacking options. So there's a lot that has annoyed me. And I wonder what the decision-making process was for the left side of our attack. Because I can see a world where, of course, Hughes and Edwards would want to develop young Rio Engamoa. But we must also acknowledge that not replacing the dynamism of Luis Diaz in the short term was always going to lead us to a problem on the left-hand side. We didn't know going into the season how much we were going to see Rio Engamoa utilised on the left, but we were told that the club didn't want to block the pathway through. So, tough one to figure that one out, because we're not seeing him getting minutes. Yes, he got some last night, and that was great to see, but that's an anomaly compared to what we've seen for the season so far. So then it leaves you with Cody Gakpo as the only real left side option. And like I've said for numerous times this season, a lack of real alternatives in competition isn't a good environment. It's not good for fostering competition for places, to make sure that you're at the top of your game, and to keep you focused. It's easy to become a bit more lackadaisical, whether consciously or subconsciously, if you don't have competition for your spots. So one of the things we really got stuck into on the podcast today was pushing aside the Arne Slot conversation for a minute and looking at those above him and asking, could they have done more? Is there a long-term vision? And how much, if any, responsibility they should take for where we are this season domestically? And I think it's an interesting conversation worth having. So if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to park up the Arne Slot stuff for a few minutes and just talk about Hughes and Edwards. More specifically Edwards. More specifically Hughes. So Michael Edwards is Liverpool's or FSG's CEO of footballing operations. So what the hell does he do? Because the day-to-day stuff we're led to believe Richard Hughes is the sporting director. But FSG don't have any other football clubs. So what is Michael Edwards' actual role? How is he earning his money? What is he doing to justify that salary in that position? Genuinely, I would love to know that. It's not meant as a derogatory question. It's a sincere question. I don't know what he does. He hasn't got them another club. He's been in, a year and a half now. No other club. We're led to believe that Hughes is the day-to-day decision maker. So what is Edwards actually involved with? Genuinely, I'd love to know the answer to that. And on Richard Hughes, he definitely has to take some responsibility. Because Arne is a head coach, and I will criticise him for all the footballing decisions out there on the pitch, because it is his domain. But bringing in players, well, that isn't down to him. He doesn't have the final say in that. Like any other head coach, he probably has players he'd like or not like, and players he'd say, I'd rather this one over this one. But those decision-making situations are Richard Hughes. Now, this summer, for all the celebrated transfer business that we did, and rightly celebrated, we went into the season acknowledging that there was still a shortage in a couple of positions. Centre-back was one of those positions. So for us to then go into January having the centre-back situation having worsened, right, from earlier on in the season, why did Richard Hughes not feel it necessary to recruit a centre-back? Giovanni Leone, all we know for certain is that he played 87 minutes in a League Cup game. The same game that Rio Engamoa and others were playing in. So we don't really know how much we would have seen of Giovanni Leone this season. We don't know. It may have been a case like Jarell Kwanzaa before him where necessity meant he would have played a lot of games. But who knows how we would have reacted to that. Would he have been another player who had some good, some bad, and showed that he needed time to adapt to the Premier League? Not sure. But we went into January this month knowing that Kanade's future was still up in the air. Of course, we didn't know at the start of the month his father was going to pass away. And again, that's a separate situation and understandable in the extreme. No problem with that. But we did know at that point that we were going to have no Giovanni Leone. And we also tried to bring in Mark Gay at the end of August. So what did change there from the end of August? Because even up to the start of this month, people were saying that Liverpool still wanted to sign Mark Gay in the summer, next summer. So what happened? That not only did we not sign Mark Gay, but we sat on our hands and did absolutely nothing this season. Like, even if we believe Arne can turn this round, and if you're a person that thinks Arne can do it, we have to agree, surely, that the higher-ups haven't given him the best chance of doing it. Because it makes no sense to me not to go and strengthen when you're in trouble. Now, you can say you don't do these things with short-term targets, but Mark Gay wasn't a short-term target. Manchester City suffered 2 injuries at centre-back. They went out and they bought one. They weren't happy with their forward line. They went out and they bought one in January. So, truly, right now, I'm very confused as to what the ambition is for the season. Because we'll all have our take on the coach, like we said. But the recruitment has been scattered at best. It's been a lot of one out, one in. And they were upgrades. But that depth, which we know we need, and Arsenal are now showing you need, to compete across multiple competitions, isn't there. It just isn't there. And that depth definitely lays with Hughes. That's his fault. So that's my case to blame Richard Hughes on some of this. Like I've said, I have been vocal and will continue to be when I don't think Arne Slot's done a good enough job. But I want people to know that I am aware and I'm questioning the failures elsewhere as well. Because it's shown up that our transfer business hasn't been good enough. It's shown up that we are still light going into the season. And Connor kept repeating something on the podcast. He kept saying, it always feels like we're 90%. Even in the good times under Jurgen, felt like we were 90% of the way there. Why don't we ever just finish the job? Because next summer, you're going to see the same thing again. You're going to see a summer with 5 or 6 first-team players brought in, and we're going to hear about too much change, and we're going to hear about stylistically it taking time, which would, in my opinion, again, only re-emphasise the fact that bringing in a player in January negates some of that risk for next season as well as bedding them in and helping out for the here and now. So to go through this month and not bring in a defensive reinforcement of any nature whatsoever, that is an absolute failure for Richard Hughes. It is absolutely unfathomable that he's allowed that to happen this month. And still look us in the eye and think that we really think we're going to succeed this season. So, like I said, Arne has faults and lots of them. But he isn't on his own for failure. So maybe we need to start asking more questions of those above him. Craig, I respect your opinion, so what centre-back would you choose? Honestly, Daniel, I would have taken Mark Gay. It was a no-brainer. Look, we'll all hypothesise as to what centre-backs we want or which ones we think are the best. Bastoni's one name from some people. Mark Gay just worked for so many reasons. Leadership, homegrown, experience in the Premier League, right age bracket, right price, it all just worked. And there's no explanation as to why Richard Hughes didn't want to get that done in January. In my head, and I've said this before, I can't help but feel like it kind of is some way inextricably linked to the money not coming in for Harvey Elliott. That £35 million, which coincidentally was the same amount of money that we would have paid for Mark Gay, isn't coming into Liverpool. Because we know that they're not going to sign Harvey Elliott permanently. So what's happening there then? So have your say, folks. Do let me know what you think. And yeah, I'm open to your thoughts and your suggestions tonight, and your feedback, of course, on where you think we really are and what's going to happen. Ryan said, I would buy Bastoni for a starter, a centre-back from Inter, and Alphonso Davies at right-back from Bayern. You're not going to get Alphonso Davies. He's just signed a new contract on huge money to keep him at Bayern. So there's no chance in hell you're going to get him, or we'd pay the money that he's getting at Bayern. So we can forget that name. Bastoni, would love him, but will he move? Are we really in for him? I don't know the answer to either of those questions, but would take him in a heartbeat. And Nico Williams up top. Again, on Nico Williams, he could have been gotten, wasn't. And we've not really... It's more Arsenal, I think, that have shown an appetite for Nico Williams than us. But again, I understand every one of those names you've mentioned, mate. I do. I completely get where you're coming from on them. And if it was, fantasy football time, perhaps, but I just don't think some of them are realistic for us. And also, if I'm not mistaken, you had your fullback playing on the wrong side. Davies is a left back, and we have a left back brought in Enquiries. And we're not going to go out and bring in another one then to compete with Enquiries, who's only, 21, 22, and we spend quite a bit of money on. So we asked, was it the correct decision not to sign any first team players in January? We're going to leave that poll running a little bit longer so you guys can have your say on it. AJ, how are you, mate? So do you think Arna is using the youngsters as political pawns to those above him as a result of them not bringing in first team players, so he refuses to play them? I really don't know, AJ, but let's just again park up the blame part for a minute and just ask, why aren't we doing that? Regardless of saying you're at fault, this, that, or the other, why aren't we using some of the younger players? Just on its own merit, why aren't we using... I've seen Darren McAnthony on Sky kind of saying something similar. Like, Arna and the club might as well go to the academy and say, well, we're closing it up here, fellas, because they're not willing to give them a chance or roll the dice with them. And again, whether that's because Arna doesn't think they're good enough or not, he should be playing them. These are options. Like, if they're good enough to be brought in by Liverpool Football Club and are in the 21s and impressing, well, what's the whole point of the system if they don't eventually get a chance in the first team? Now, not everybody, of course. There will be some people who don't make the grade and won't take the leap forward. But it's either that our recruitment has been shocking for the underage teams, which it doesn't look like it has been, to be fair, because some of them results have been brilliant lately, or Slot just doesn't want to bring through some of these young players. Again, I don't know definitively the answers, but we haven't seen these young guys given minutes this season to the extent that could have helped us out in some of these times of crisis. And also, of course, could have helped with injury prevention as well. Is Hughes' AI only visible selectively? It is mad. Like, it was really enjoyable hearing him speak with Arna when he unveiled him as the head coach. And, if you look at the models that we're supposed to be based on, so the way we always hear about the Liverpool way? It's the Liverpool way to do this, the Liverpool way to do that. Well, the boot room was the Liverpool way. and the boot room's gone. We've adopted a modern European style in our club of how it's run. So in a modern European style, we can't half-arse doing that. If you want to model yourselves on a European system, well then the sporting director should be at press conferences, because that is how that model works. What you can't do, in my opinion, is have a coach that gets questions that he can't really answer because they aren't his to answer, and have everybody else hiding behind the scenes, unwilling to face up. That's not fair on Arne. So again, it feels like the Liverpool way is trotted out as an excuse for not taking any action or doing something. In this model, the Liverpool way now is that we have a structure. We have a head coach and a sporting director. So the sporting director isn't being forthcoming with the information that he needs to be, compared to obviously Arne, who's out there every week in a presser. So there are things that I do feel sympathy with Arne for. And like I've said, if you want that system of a sporting director, then the sporting director has to be accountable. It's, you can't just keep saying, oh, it's on him, wheel him out and you hide. Come out and face the media. Answer the questions. Why didn't we sign Mark Gay? Why aren't we bringing in players? Like, these are questions that Richard Hughes should be answering. Stargirl said, had the fittest players for running and endurance. We did have, yes. And now this season, I don't know what's up, but it's a mixture of players coming in from leagues that the manager feels aren't ready for 90 minutes of Premier League intensity, versus us just looking fatigued and tired in general. And a lot of the pundits covering football and covering the Premier League have mentioned that what you've said about Liverpool kind of not looking the same machine from a fitness perspective. And I don't know if something's changed there on the training ground, because, again, we ain't there every single day, are we? Craig, if you know the answer, or even speculate on the Harvey situation, is it Hughes and Edwards or Slot that won't bring Harvey back? This situation is one, again, Paddy Wacker, that conveniently has two different contradicting answers for two different situations, and both of them are to suit the club. So, for Harvey Elliott, what Arne Slot said, and again, he shouldn't have been answering this question because it's not on him to answer it, but he's the only one there, so he had to. He said he's an Aston Villa player. Liverpool have no option to recall him. So, that is what it is. Then if you flip it around and we come to Costas, we have no option to recall him, but suddenly there was an ability to have conversations with Roma about maybe doing that. But crickets when it came to doing that for Harvey Elliott. These are the things that wind me up. Very similar situations, but very different outcomes from the club, and briefing very different answers. I don't know the answer. But I feel like if we really did want to get Elliott back, it wouldn't be very hard to figure out. And even if Arne doesn't want to play him or doesn't think he has a long-term future, again, he's another good Premier League proven midfield attacking option that would help us from a numerical standpoint with the injuries we're facing as well. So I don't know. I get the feeling that the answer to a lot of these questions is money. And we are back to cheapness FC. I just get that feeling. I really do. Because even when you hear Arne talk about the transfer spending, and to be fair to him, he was saying this all the way back in the summer as well. He's always said, we brought in a load of money as well. Now, why is he saying that? I think he's saying it to show that there is only so much is happening with regards to transfers. And I think he's almost trying to point the finger at the people who should be responsible for that. Just my take on it. So like I said, there's a lot of complain about Arne about this season, and we'll continue to. But we can't escape the fact that above, there's been a lot of failure. Here's one for you. LFC Laurie posted this, and it was a mad interesting one. Frimpong missed 12 games in 6 seasons across his time with Celtic and Bayer Leverkusen. And he's already picked up 3 injuries in 5 months with us. He said, I give up. Why is that? You know, we used to ask, was Jurgen working the players too hard in training? Were they burning out and getting injuries? This season, again, the one thing that was the strength and superpower of Arna and Ruben Peters, the availability to keep players fit, has seemingly suffered. So why is that? These are, again, I think, fair questions that fans want an answer to. The less options you have, the more you have to keep playing players, which is why I keep talking about the centre-back situation being one that isn't going to end well. Because Verge is 34, heading for 35, and he's going to probably have to play 55, 60 games this season. You know, it's not too mad to think that there might be an injury there somewhere. And to mitigate that, you've got to limit minutes. And to limit minutes, you've got to have options. So you've got a manager who won't use the younger players. And you've got a sporting director that won't bring in reinforcements. So there's a kind of a catch-22 there. But for us as fans, all we see is we're fucked. You know? What's this? Let me just check on this. So, Romano has said, Liverpool today had some conversations internally to check the right-back market. They're exploring some possibilities, but they believe there's not so many options of quality. If they find a good solution, they'll go for it. Otherwise, they'll stay with the current squad. I'm never a proponent to bring in somebody because of an injury in a position you're well stocked in. So by that I mean, the reason I'm banging on about centre-back is because we aren't well stocked enough in there. Even with everybody fit, we're short. But at right-back, we've got 2 good options. Now, you can say that maybe they've come to the conclusion that these guys can't stay fit for a season and they aren't reliable enough to rely on. That's a different conversation. But if we are to believe that Frimpong and Bradley are still Liverpool's choices moving forward, then yeah, I agree with not bringing in a right back. But there's just no world that I can get behind the idea of not bringing in a centre back. That just seems like stupidity at this point. Fab News in looking for a right back. But again, what does that do? Like, let's say we bring in a right back. Well, what happens in the summer? When we've got Frimpong, when we've got Bradley and this other right back, what happens there? So something has to give and you probably have to sell one of them. If they've made that calculation, fair enough. Like I've said, if they think one of these guys can't do it going for the long term, okay. But the centre-back one, I'm still yet to hear an argument back or a journalist write why we haven't done that. Because they can't hide behind the players that we wanted weren't available or on the market scenario because, well, you know, hi, I'm Mark Gay and I play for Manchester City. So that went out the window. But it's, again, crickets on that one from the Liverpool media who won't ask these questions. This, by the way, will be the last late night agenda until I'm here for the watch along on Saturday. Just to let you guys know, I won't be live at all tomorrow. But we have a couple of videos coming out for you tomorrow, but I won't be live tomorrow. So just to let you guys know, there's nothing wrong in case you come and you don't see me, you think something's up or at. We'll be here for the watch along though on Saturday. Don't forget as well, if you haven't already entered our giveaway, we're giving away a signed Steven Gerrard frame shirt completely free. Scan the QR code below or use the link in the description for further details. Again, a massive thank you to the Collector's Corner for giving us that shirt to give away. And we will be giving away one signed item every single month throughout 2026. With thanks to our friends at the Collector's Corner. Make sure that you are in the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp to join. And again, if you want to buy yourself something and treat yourself to something from the Collector's Corner, our discount code, Anfield Agenda, and then the number 1 will get you 20% off anything over there. Right. George, how are you, mate? Slot can't handle integrating more players. Adding new ones may create issues. The board may be waiting to spend big in the summer with a new manager. So in that scenario, George, there's 2 things that jump out to me in your comment. One, that only re-emphasises to me that the manager should be fired, because you've pointed out that either they don't trust him or he can't integrate them. So that's a problem. So I would say, again, what's the point of keeping him until the end of the season? And the second part of it that you've said is the board may want to spend big in the summer with a new coach. Are we then going to have to write off this year and next year? Because I don't want to hear next year that we aren't competing because we've so many changes, or we aren't competing because there's a new coach and he has 5 or 6 new players to bed in. Because that's another season gone then. And I'm, as a fan, under FSG, there have been too many of those type of seasons where we've had to watch as the season peters out because we haven't done anything substantial to stop the rot. So for me, mate, like I said, they're not showing faith in the coach because they're not bringing in reinforcements to back him. We all know he's gone in the summer, despite James Pearce and everybody else trying to pretend otherwise. We all know that. And how do we know that? Well, as I said with Connor on the podcast, let's play things out a little bit. What do we know Liverpool are trying to do right now? Well, they're talking about Dominic Szoboszlai. They're talking about Ryan Gravenberch. They're talking about Alexis McAllister. All about extensions, right? But the one person that they were publicly talking about an extension with at the start of the season, nothing. No noise. Onana. Why is that? Again, you know the answer. I know the answer. The journalists know the answer. But nobody wants to say it out loud. Fans don't want another season written off. They just don't. They don't want to hear that it's all lost for us now, or that they're waiting until it gets too bad to fix it. Look, this question about Slot's future to me boils down to one simple thing. One question. Will he win the Champions League or not? Because that's it for me. That's what it boils down to. If the answer to that is you think yes, then I understand you want him to stay till the end of the season. I absolutely do. But if the answer to that is no, or it's unlikely, then we have a fucking problem. We have a problem. Because if we don't win the Champions League, our league form is so up and down that we have no true belief that we're going to qualify to play in that competition again next season. And it doesn't take too much of a stretch of the imagination to think that we may drop some points against Newcastle and City, even in one of the games. We're already in 6th. 5 places will probably be available for the Champions League, so 5th will get you there. But we're in a dogfight for those 2 places, because Villa are 10 points clear of us. So it's going to take a lot to reel them back in. So they're 10 points clear of us, so there's 2 places left. And you've got Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Newcastle, who I think are only 3 points behind us as things stand, which makes this weekend's game a huge one, because we can increase that distance on them if we beat them. But if we don't, again, they're right, breathing down our necks. We've got Manchester City up after that in the Premier League. So again, it comes down to, do you believe this manager is going to be able to win the Champions League? Because I don't know how anybody can say with any confidence that they know definitively this manager will get us into the Champions League next season. Because we're more than half the way through the season. We're 23 games in and we're 6th. 6th, and it's tight below. There's only a few points between where we are and 9th or 10th. So it's a lot of risk taken for people that are supposed to be risk averse and are supposed to be data driven. This is, again, what confuses me. So that's where my head's at right now. And I'm going to ask a poll question right now on that. So 86% of people said they don't think it was the right decision to make a signing this month. So, the question I'm going to ask for you guys is, do you think it's likely we win the Champions League this season? It's likely, yes or no? Do let me know. Right, let's keep going. Trent on loan. Yeah, no, thank you. Even the idea of people saying, bring Trent back, would you take Trent back? The part that should all fall down on is any belief whatsoever that it wouldn't cost us 60, 70, 75 million quid. So, yeah, as I said, that whole thing just falls down even when you start the conversation at that. We have another right back in Ramsey, but again, Slot refuses to use him. Not only that, AJ, let's go back a few weeks, mate. He undermined Calvin Ramsey publicly by talking about having better options. Now, even from a psychological and coaching standpoint, what has that done to Calvin Ramsey's confidence now that we may need him? And Slot may have to use the guy who we spoke about publicly as saying he has better options. It's not it's not good. It's not a good choice. It wasn't a good thing to say publicly. Now I'm going to move on in a while after we've talked about this to his comments after the game last night, which again have left me absolutely astounded. Saunders said, I'd sell Bradley, not good enough and injury prone. Can I ask an honest question on Bradley? Why do you think he's not good enough? I can totally understand the injury prone part because it's a fair concern. But not good enough? Come on. I think that's a stretch. What is he, 22? Not even fully into his prime? I think I get you on the injury thing, and it is a huge concern and one that's absolutely worth a conversation. But he's good enough. Conor Bradley's a damn good player. But, like I said, you have a very good point on the injury concerns. And like we talked about earlier on, that is something the club are going to have to make a decision on in the long term. Do we have two injury-prone right-backs, and is there something to be done there for the longer term? Again, I totally understand that as a talking point, but I would disagree on Bradley not being good enough. I think he's a very, very good right-back. But the injury thing, it's more than fair. Yeah, it's tough. They're tough decisions that the club have to make, all right. Now remember, we have only rewarded him with a new contract as well, Conor Bradley, at the end of last season. So we were putting the faith in Bradley to say that you are going to be the guy. Now, to be fair to Arnott in this one, he's always said that the big problem for Bradley is to prove that he can play games twice a week or a game a week. So the manager's always been upfront, or the coach has always been upfront about that, and I'll give him his fair dues on that one. But again, like I said, these are the type of questions the club are going to have to figure out for the longer term. Craig, I'm baffled at the way the club is acting. If we know players available in that position, yet we hear only for the right player. I don't know what to say, because I don't have an excuse for us not doing business in January. I just don't. I can understand if you have two right backs you believe in the long term, you don't want to bring the right back. I don't agree with bringing in a player when you have an injury, or signing a player long term when you have an injury just to cover the injury time. I think that's just silliness. But the centre back one, that really, really, really just has me extremely confused. Why we didn't bring in a centre back, because our needs gotten worse. Kuzip said something interesting is that under Edwards' previous tenure at our club from 16 to 22, he's only brought in 5 players in all of those January windows combined, so that doesn't give me much hope. I don't know how much control Edwards has. over that at the minute, because he's not actually directly a Liverpool employee. He's an FSG executive or CEO of football. But Richard Hughes is the day-to-day guy who deals with the recruitment of players along with the scouts and the recruitment team. And a lot of the years I would agree when clubs say, well, the right guy isn't available in January, or the ones that we wanted longer term aren't available in January. A lot of the time I've kind of had to shrug my shoulders and go, yeah, I get it. But I don't get it with Mark A. I just don't get it. I don't get why we didn't do that. And I don't get why we haven't had an explanation as to why we didn't do that. Because I think fans should be entitled to one. You know, just even from a PR perspective, it looks weird that you want a player both summers, but in the middle when he's available, nothing. That just sounds weird. Something doesn't feel right about that. Right. Remember Alexander Isak used to play for Liverpool, so join gifts. Yeah. I look forward to him coming back, although we don't actually, of course, know the confirmed date yet for him to come back in. But certainly it'll be a big boost when he does come back in. So there's been a story today from Caught Offside that said Liverpool are showing strong interest in Eduardo Camavinga and are seriously pushing for a potential deal. Do you believe that? And that's not a sarcastic do you believe that. That's an honest do you believe that, because I'm unsure. I would say we're far more likely to be looking at Wharton than Camavinga. Camavinga is an exceptionally good footballer. He has had some injury concerns, right? If I'm not mistaken. But, you know, he's a really good player. There's no denying that. I just don't believe it for 1 second. Because, I keep coming back to, when is the last time Liverpool bought a player from Real Madrid? It doesn't really happen. So, I just don't think there's anything to that, personally. And I'm certainly not expecting it to happen. Some good news, potentially, though. Paul Joyce said that Gomez and Canade could be back for Saturday's game, which is good news. And obviously, I was thinking about the Canade situation, you know, and you know, whether he'd possibly be able to be in the right headspace or not. But one of the journalists on Back Pages tonight, I think it was, made a good point that maybe players often use football as well for their own escapism. So yeah, maybe it'll be a nice escape from you know, with just to focus on football for a few hours. But I guess the question that I'd like to ask is, would you play Gomez at right back at the weekend if he's declared fit? And the reason I ask that is because that means we have our only 3 fit centre-backs on the pitch together again, which would worry me. So for my predicted 11 in my preview, which is coming out in an hour, I don't have Gomez in at right back because I think we need to look after what we have as well. So it's a tough one for me because we don't know the extent of the hip issue that Gomez had or felt. Is he still feeling something? Is it fully healed? So for me, I think it's a risk too much to play all of our centre backs in the game. Someone said Fernando Morientes. I think he was on a free, if I'm not mistaken. I think Morientes came in on a free. Could be wrong on that one though, but I think it was on a free. Or it was a loan, one or the other. We should have known when Slot said he wouldn't be doing fist pumps last year. Did you see the reaction, or should I say lack of reaction, after Fede's goal last night? That was a weird one, right? Yeah, that was a weird one. So I said something to Connor in the podcast, and the podcast is out, by the way, on Spotify. So if you want to have a watch or a listen to it, the full episode's up on Spotify. Is it worth having the conversation about bringing Costas back just so we can use one of our left backs at right back as well? Like, the idea of getting rid of Robbo now, that should be in the bin. But is it worth trying to get Costas back so we have another option as a fullback? Now, granted, they'd be playing on the wrong side, but they're still a fullback and it's still a position that they understand. So I'm wondering, is there anything to be said for that even to try and help us out? James said it was the 6th goal. He's hardly going to be bouncing about. But it was all right for the 5th and the 4th. Come on, mate. I mean, there might be nothing to it, but he celebrated every other goal and he showed absolutely no acknowledgement even that we'd scored in that moment. Now, you could be right, dude. You could be right. It could have just been a coincidence and it was the 6th goal, but it didn't look like the face of a manager who just seen his team score another goal. Red Woman, how are we? Said, I don't get not using the academy players. The more that make it, the better for everyone. No cost, get the club have, and connection with the fans. Yeah. Look, Liverpool have spent the last few years bringing in some good talent in the academies. Now, I'm not one that keeps an eye on the academy as much as others, so I'm not going to be able to say to you this, and this player should be in. But the point you've made is one that comes up quite a bit, is that he hasn't really brought on any young players. As in, by brought on, I mean developed any young players in the year and a half or so he's been in. I wonder why Fede played on the edge of offside, even he had so much time. Well, he timed it right, so it doesn't really matter. I was nervous, like yourself, when I'd see. I think it was lovely and noticeable when Fede scored was, Virgil and everyone running over to him to celebrate with him. I thought that was a lovely moment, and again, in front of the cop, so you could see how excited Fede was, and Virgil was as well from to have got the goal. That was a nice moment. Calmore, Lifestyle, said, Slot reminding us we were in the Europa one season ago and that we won one league in 30 years, trying to convince us we're shit and he's overachieving. Yeah, you're right. And it's a fucking disgrace. I said I was going to get on to his comments from the end of yesterday's game. Well, you've led me into it nicely. The way he's been going on lately, he really is trying to make out like we're some type of shit club and he has come in and been brilliant and we're not grateful enough. And it's really rubbed me up and many others up the wrong way. Like, again, there's a lot of context needed. And yes, we went out to Atalanta. And yes, that wasn't good enough either. Fans had started to go out at the 78th minute or whatever it was. Am I still live? I am. Sorry, it went off and on for a minute. So if it blinks off and on, bear with me. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, that's been winding me up as well. That he's been saying stuff like that. Like when he won the Premier League and he was on the pitch, he said it was 2 league titles in 5 years, not 2 league titles in 30 years. Then when it suits him, he goes back to the 2 and 30 years. And some people are trying to say to me in the comments yesterday as well, Klopp had some seasons where he finished 5th and 8th. Yeah. But again, look at the two teams they both inherited and look at the trajectory under both coaches. Jurgen earned the right to have a season or two that was poor. Jurgen wasn't given the money that he was given. Jurgen didn't inherit as good a team as Arne has. And I'm starting to get a little bit miffed with some of these comments, because if he's not having digs at the fans, he's now having digs at the club. And it feels like the last sting of a dying wasp, because he's alienating himself even more at a time where he surely got to double down to try and win the fans back over. Talking about outside noise and all this other stuff. It really is just madness. And like I said, when I get messages off Connor after a game, and I read through the messages, and at the bottom of them, it's, my God. Like, something's up, because Connor's the most laid back, calm dude. And when he's sending me stuff saying, my God, I know it's bad. And I know that, if he's not happy, then I'm not overreacting. because, you know, I'm an emotional fella. I sometimes can overreact to things, but yeah, the comments he's come out with lately feel like he's disrespecting us as a club. You can say Craigie's right, and again, there might be a factual basis to that. But to try and take digs now with the likes of Atalanta, I mean, Jurgen Klopp won a Champions League as well, Aaron, and got to 2 more finals. Jurgen Klopp in his first year brought us to a Europa League final. It really pisses me off the way he's been speaking lately. AJ says, do you think it's worth keeping Robbo long term if he'll stay, but as a centre back? So the honest answer to me there, AJ, is that Andy Robertson has earned the right to make the decision for the remainder of his career on whatever he and his family want to do. He's earned that right, I believe. Now, outside of this month, because this month, Liverpool need to be somewhat selfish and need to say, look, we need you, Andy. You need to stay, mate. We can't let you go. So on that one, I think this month, we have to say, sorry, Robbo, man. There's no chance of that move to Spurs. But in the summer, if that's what he wants and his family wants, he's earned the right to have that decision. And then the club have to go out and get another left back. You know, we'd seen the links to Anthony Robinson and players like that. And it would make sense to bring in somebody 26, 27, somebody like that. That would make sense. Because then you have your young centre back, or your young left back in Milos Kerkez, and then your senior pro to compete. Because one thing we can't keep doing as well is ignoring the amount of experience we're going to lose. So we're like 1 year away at most from losing the likes of Alisson, Salah and Virgil. Now that's 3 players there who've been there, done it, wore the t-shirt, won everything. You know, on top of the ones we've lost like Henderson, Milner, a lot of experience and mentality, winning mentality is leaving this dressing room as well. Again, that's not on Arna. That's just the way the club have allowed the situation with the contracts to develop and haven't really looked to forward plan enough. Paddy Wacker said, I think Slot is the next manager of PSG. He loves the style so much. Hopefully he'll go over there and achieve just leave our club. Let Slot destroy another team. He's damaged us enough. Even I'm trying to walk back his comments on the PSG thing. Just felt like he was just digging the hole deeper at that point. Trying to say it was maybe a language barrier or whatever. I don't know. I'm not buying it. Sorry, I'm just going through my notes here. James Pearce in The Athletic said, at Liverpool, Slot's bond with sporting director Richard Hughes remains strong. It was Hughes who led the search for Klopp's successor and was convinced that Slot was the outstanding candidate to take over. That belief in his coaching acumen remains. Of course it does, James. Of course it does. He's not at all getting lined up to be fired at the end of the season, mate. That belief's still there. Definitely. Definitely there, James. You're definitely not talking shit at all there, mate. Defo not. Still there. But you know what isn't there? The bond with the fans, which is also kind of an important one, you know, because he's now mocking the club's history, recent success. This isn't the Eredivisie, Arna. It's not easy to walk into the Prem, mate, and just start winning shit. You may be able to get away with it and do it in other leagues and play for 60, 75 minutes and switch off, but not in the Prem. And I'm really getting wound up by him belittling our club and our fans. Just shut the fuck up, mate, at this point. Just stop. What happens when we lose against Newcastle and City? What will the stupid hierarchy do? Because he'll be out of the top 5, say. Well, we're out of it now. And that's before these 2 games. So, yeah. I don't know. But we're going to find out over the next week or so. Hey Craig, it was my 20th birthday yesterday and I got my first tattoo today. It's an interesting feeling. I'd like to think I bought good luck last night for that win to qualify for the round of 16. Well, happy birthday, my man. Nice one on getting your first tattoo. It is an interesting feeling. You're right on that one. It's a very difficult one to describe between scratching, burning, and a few other things. But well done. Glad you enjoyed the game as well. And like I said, happy birthday to you, my man. Dave, how are we, bro? Said Jurgen respected the fans and we respected him. Slot is a disgrace. No respect to the fans, club players, or even our history. Pearce and Co can do one. Yeah, I don't know of a journalist that I've had such a 180 on as James Pearce. Because when James Pearce used to work for the Echo, I had nothing but time for James Pearce and respect for him, and enjoyed what he wrote and what he did. I feel like they've gone massively downhill since he's left, and I feel like he's become, how do I say this in a respectable way, nothing but the eternal optimist in the work that he writes about Liverpool Football Club. Even with evidence to the contrary at times, he tends to try to paint a picture of happier times. And then he comes out with garbage like Liverpool aren't going to sign a goalkeeper when we all know we're signing Georgie 5 days later. Just stuff like that just doesn't help. Jeff Porter, how are you? Raum or Mittelstadt as a new left back would be great. Both alternate as starters for Germany. Love Robbo forever, our best ever left back. Don't know much about. I know a little bit about Raum, but I will definitely have to take a look at the other ones, Jeff, and take your word for it, mate. Thank you for the heads up. We'll have a look at them. We definitely will need another left back in the summer by the looks of things. To come in and be competition or deputy, if you want to say, to Milos Kerkez, who definitely is the guy going forward. Like, he was brought in for the future. Oh, I want to ask you guys a question about the game on Saturday after this poll. So just remind me that I wanted to do a poll on the game, because I'll forget what it was about. So, we have a question. Do you think it's likely we win the Champions League this season? That's the poll we have running at the minute. And the reason I've asked the question is because if you think it isn't likely, then I don't think there's a defence for not firing them now. Because our league form is up and down, and we are sixth, and the season is about 2/3 of the way through almost. So we're in a dogfight to qualify for the Champions League. So if we don't think he's going to win the Champions League, I think that only strengthens my shout that he should be fired now. But then again, if you believe you're going to win the Champions League, then I can understand you wanting to stay till the end of the season to see that point. But what I don't want to be doing is sitting here in March saying we're out of the Champions League, we're 6th or 7th, and we're probably looking at Europa Conference League football, and then it's too late to save the season. I don't want another one of those I told you so moments. This is one of those times where I don't want to be right. I want the club to just do what should be done, which is remove the head coach. Lee Jericho said, I just said yes out of principle. It's possible. In the same way it's possible for probably 6, 7 or 8 teams to win the Champions League this year. Like, I would definitely say it's possible. But likely, I think even at the best of times, when we're firing on all cylinders, and you can go back, I've said this for years, I don't know that you can ever confidently predict you're going to win a Champions League, because unlike the league, it is about peaking at the right time. And if we do that, and if a team does that, yeah, you can go all the way, as Paris Saint-Germain showed last year. Again, though, I don't see signs of us peaking. I don't see signs of us getting better. I don't. I see us beating Karabag 6-0, and in the second half, they pretty much had given up and didn't even come out with their half, really. For the second half, we absolutely swarmed them in that half, and it was like a training exercise. So yeah, last night wasn't going to swing me either way. Much more in, much more out. It was always going to be, let's just get the job done and get into the last 16. Itachi said, 2 years ago, we lost against Atalanta in the Europa League. What is this shite? Is this our new standard? Always looking to the worst. No fire, no heart, no identity. Slot sucked the life out of this club, but back him. Again, like I've said, he just keeps digging that hole deeper for himself and keeps alienating himself with the fans more and more and more. And it's the wrong way to be going about it, because he needs to be winning the fans around. And saying things like that, you either interpret it that he's having a dig at the club, that it isn't what it thinks it is, or he's having a knock at Klopp, in which case, that's not going to fly either. Look, if you're asking me, do I think it's likely we win the Champions League, I'm saying no. But I can't say it's definitively not going to happen, because we have a chance. We're in the last 16. We've as much a chance as anybody. But I wouldn't, if this was my club, my money, my future, I wouldn't be pinning on that hope. Especially if I was an owner who's supposed to be risk averse and bases decisions on data. There's nothing to me that points that this is getting better this season with Arna. So I would rather take my chances now of cutting ties with him and bringing somebody else in. Whether that's Gerrard or somebody else in the short term, I don't know. But like I said, it's a big strategy, because let's say he wins the Champions League, then happy days, worthwhile gamble, well done everyone. But if he doesn't, the ramifications and the knock-on impact could be huge, because not winning it and maybe not qualifying for it, particularly the not qualifying for a part, the impact of that financially and psychologically to the football club is immense. Because if you've got contract negotiations that you're having with McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, or even the likes of Ibrahima Konate, you don't know whether you're basing those conversations on the probability that we're going to be in the Champions League for the next 3-4 years or not. How can you budget that? And you can't then go and attract top players on a top salary without knowing that you have the guarantee of Champions League football to pay for that. And you can say give them incentivized contracts, but the real top talent in the world are going to want still a high level of a base salary, which if you're not in the Champions League, well, as Mo Chatter pointed out the other day, no Champions League and the Europa League means at least 50 million worse off. No Champions League or Europa League means we're £100 million worse off. And that £100 million is one that you would have to say most likely the club expected to be receiving. So what does that do for the negotiations for the likes of those players with McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch? You're hardly going to be in a great position to negotiate them a pay rise if your club isn't going to be in the Champions League. And that's before you talk about the knock-on impact of budgets, player recruitment, and stuff like that. These are real risks that I don't think the risk-averse people are being averse enough to that risk. It just strikes me as not very joined-up thinking. Because the impact, like I said, could be catastrophic if we don't have Champions League football. Paddy Wacker said, Craig, if I had a 5% belief in Slot bring us Champions League, I'd be the most optimistic person in the chat. I cannot see us winning with his style and brand, whatever people describe. Liverpool have already got 40 million from the Champions League. Yeah, right, but that's money we have for next year. But what about the year after that? and the year after that. It just shows you how profitable the Champions League is. Like you've said, I think it's 43 or 44 million, something like that, we've brought in so far. And if you go on to win that, then more than double that. You're talking over 100 million quid. And then also you'll be in the next Club World Cup, which is another 100 million down the line, because that's pretty much what clubs were in it this year, like Chelsea. So, there's that as well. I just think failure this season could set us back quite a long way. And then we're closer to becoming that Man United we didn't want to become than before. That's my true belief, that I don't think the risk-reward ratio to keep Slot on board is worth it. But like I said, my opinion doesn't matter one bit. It's whatever the owners want to do. It's their club. It's their opinion that matters. Do you think Liverpool are waiting for Gerrard in March as interim for tax reasons because he can't take over until then? No, I don't. Because, again, if that was the case, at that point the damage could be well and truly done for the season. And if we're out of the Champions League at that point, or if we've fallen further away in the league, season's not retrievable anyway. And your prospects for next season and attracting a top manager again become less and less. Or harder, I should say. Champions League is it. Champions League is where you need to be to attract the managers, the players that we want, of the likes of Wirtz and Isak and that. We need that Champions League. We need to be in it season after season. And whatever way you want to paint the picture, right now, 23 games in, we're 6th, with the league table below us quite tight. Like, the biggest indictment of all should be that we're behind Manchester United. That in itself should be enough to let you know how bad this season is. We are behind a team that we were all laughing about a month ago, 2 months ago. We're behind them in the league. Why would you get an interim if Xabi is available? I'm assuming that he didn't want to come in until the summer. Because if Alonso wanted to come in now and was willing to come in now, yeah, of course. That would be number one option if he's the guy. But again, we don't know that Alonso would be the guy, right? We don't know that. And, we all have our opinion on it. We know he's available and we know that he's linked. But, again, there's no 100% to say that he is the guy. But if he is, and like you've said, if he's available, sure, why not? Itachi said, do we risk losing Isak, Wirtz, Szoboszlai, Frimpong, Ekitike with no Champions League? This has to be the standard every season. Only 4th is acceptable. I don't think you risk losing a lot of those, like Wirtz, in the short term, because he's just in the door. 1 year into what I assume is probably a 5 or 6 year deal. So you've got quite a lot of control of that situation to the extent from a contractual length. The likes of Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, a little bit less so, because they're in the points now where their negotiations are starting to happen about their futures and their contracts. But no Champions League, or even a potential of no Champions League, your agent ain't going to be able to negotiate you the type of wages you're probably expecting without the guarantee of Champions League. So, yeah, like I said, knock-on impact. And I think people are thinking too short-term in this. I am petrified we don't get Champions League football. Absolutely petrified. A man that failed at Madrid, it's like taking Amro. That is the biggest idiotic statement I've ever heard in my life. How exactly did Alonso fail at Madrid? By being undermined? By the higher-ups not backing him when he wanted players to be accountable, to press, to work hard? By letting player power roam free? He didn't fail at Madrid. Madrid failed him. Make no mistake about that. Xabi Alonso didn't fail at Real Madrid. Real Madrid failed him, and have failed and will continue to fail any manager until they cut out the player power. Because player power is ruling that club. And again, how have they gotten on since with no Alonso? How are they feeling now after being beaten 4-2 by Benfica away without Alonso? So Alonso's showing he wasn't the problem at Madrid, because they haven't exactly corrected the ship since. Is it still top 5 for Champions League? It's not definitively decided yet, James, but yes, pretty much. The coefficient of the English clubs is doing really well. So yeah, it's pretty much nailed on. But I don't know if it's mathematically 100% done yet. But yeah, you'll see 5 places for the Champions League for Premier League clubs this year. Cat Dad said it was 100% Edwards who got slot in. I spoke to a member of Liverpool's legal team while in my last job. Excellent work, Craig. Love Connor's stuff. Funny man. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, look, I mean, we were even just reading out there the report that said, yes, it was Richard Hughes that pinpointed Arne Slot. But here's the thing. I hope, Cat Dad, I hope that Richard Hughes is... It isn't hubris, I hope, that's keeping Arne in a job, or an admittance that maybe we got something wrong. Because this is another aspect of this, you know. Hughes isn't answerable to you or me. He's answerable to Edwards and the owners. He should be answerable to you and me and every other fan, but he isn't. So, is he being pig-headed in not firing Arne because he brought him in? And again, I don't know the answer to this question because I don't know Richard Hughes, nor have we got a chance to get to know him because we've not really seen or heard from him. So, I don't know. But again, the right decision, for my opinion, is to get rid of the coach because he's not good enough. And what he did last year was last year. And I'm getting a little bit tired of people saying he won the league last year, he deserves more time. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. Because he's now set the standard. That's the fucking standard. And you've got an improved squad since then, or at least improved individual players since then. And we're going backwards. So thank you for winning the league last year. Sincerely, that means a lot. But there was problems after that, and they've only gotten worse. And again, he's talking about the club gone out in the Europa League 2 seasons ago. He's neglecting that Jurgen got us to 3 Champions League finals. He's neglecting that Jurgen won absolutely everything. Talking about 2 league titles in 35 years. The man is going on like he's taken over some tin pot club that isn't used to winning shit. And I'm sorry, but that's not the type of attitude I want from the head coach or the manager, whatever you want to call them. Their fates are intertwined, said Paul Driscoll. Maybe. Excuse me, I'm so wheezy and it's annoying, so I have to cough every so often. Yeah, maybe. But if I was an owner, I'd be far more forgiving if the sporting director said, look, this isn't working out. We're going to have to look again. Than somebody just sticking their fingers in their ears and looking to maybe save their own skin by keeping stum and hoping upon hope that it kind of figures itself out. Like when we hear the likes of James Pearce say that those at the club still back and believe in Arne, people automatically assume that's a good thing. But is it? Because to me, that's even a more worrying sign that there's just delusion all over the place about the situation we're in. And again, when all 3 of their futures are up in 18 months, who is doing the long-term thinking? Because, like, there hasn't been an extension for Edwards, there hasn't been an extension for Hughes, and there hasn't been an extension for Slot. They're all out of contract in 18 months. But you and I, this is where I keep trying to remind everybody, you and I and every other Liverpool fan are in it for the long haul. We're here from we're born till the time we pass away. Managers will come and go, players will come and go, coaches will come and go, sporting directors will come and go, owners will come and go. But you and I are in it for life. So it does matter to us now, and it matters to us in 10 years' time. When John W. Henry and co. eventually sail off into the sunset with billions in their back pocket, fair fucks to them. They can go off and enjoy their life and do what they've done. And they've built some success at Liverpool, brill. But we're in it for life here. This is us. This is our club. We can't write off a season. We can't switch off our emotions. We can't bring back our jerseys when we have a poor season to get a refund, or our Sky subscriptions, or our TNT Sports subscriptions. It matters all the time. It matters every week. It matters every Saturday. It matters. Slot is one of those people who are too smart for their own good. He knows football, but not so great with people. I think he's not as clever as he thinks. Because, for me, the brightest people are aware of their own limitations. So, for instance, I know there's things I can and can't do, and I know there's things I can do quite well. But even in the things I can do quite well, like, I'm not going to sit here and go, I have the biggest Liverpool YouTube channel for views, so I'm not going to listen to anybody else's advice on it or take an opinion on it. I'm always taking feedback on board. But Arna, whatever the ideas he has in his mind football-wise, I wonder, is that doable in the Premier League? Because this possession-based system that maybe can get through poorer teams in the Eredivisie isn't really cutting it in the Premier League. And he's used every excuse under the sun, from set pieces to low blocks to weather to anything. But it hasn't worked. So this is on him, because he did have a system that worked. He did have a style of play that worked. And it was he who chose to go away from that in the aim of this possession-based football. But the possession is doing nothing. It's possession for possession's sake. There is no incisive passing. As we read out in the Laura Hunter piece, there's no movement ahead. There is no final piece to the jigsaw. So what use is it? And even look at last night, by the way. I think it was something like 56-44 or 54-46 in possession in that game last night. So ironically, in the game where the possession was absolutely tighter, we won it 6-0. We had 33 or 34 shots last night, which was a Champions League record, I think. I think Slot is one of these people that overcomplicates things at times when it doesn't need to be. And he is the most uninspiring coach I've seen. Like, I wouldn't want him giving me the speech before I go in to fight for my life. Put it that way. You know, if I was to be locked in a cage with another man and it was a fight to the death and I needed a little bit of an old chat beforehand, yeah, I'm not listening to him. He's not getting me in there believing I can walk on water. Like, he ain't it. So, I did say to you guys to remind me about a poll, but it's okay, I've remembered. So, let's just end this one where we ask, do you think it's likely we win the Champions League this season? And 76% of people say no, they don't think it's likely. And 24% of people think, yes, it is likely. So even at that, 3/4 of the people that voted that they think it's unlikely. And again, that just really underlines my point that he should be gone. Because if it's unlikely he wins it, well, we're already outside the qualifying criteria. So, yeah, this is a problem. It really is a big, big problem. And I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. Because we have to wake up to this before it is too late. One sec, I'm just typing out this poll. So this one's a little bit different to our usual type of polls in that it's just a bit of fun, really. So I'm asking, do you like the 8 p.m. Saturday kickoff slot? And the reason I'm asking is because we play Newcastle obviously on Saturday at 8 o'clock. And we've had a few of them this year. And I absolutely love it. Right, let me just explain this one to you and give you my pitch for why I love them. So when I was growing up, Saturday night was it for television. You know, Saturday night was the greatest night of the week. You had your blind date, you had your A-Team, you had Airwolf, everything you wanted was Saturday night television. And as I've gotten older, I'm not as exciting as everybody out there. I don't go out and socialise. I don't go to nightclubs or pubs or don't go out for meals very often. I'm not the most social human being in the world. So for me, weekends, on the days particularly when the Reds don't play, can be quite boring. And especially Saturday nights. As I said, I'm a dull individual. So I love a Saturday 8 p.m. kickoff time. I absolutely love it because it gives the weekend a bit more buzz. A late game on a Saturday. Now, I fully appreciate for the travelling fans and for public transport issues, it can be a nightmare. I totally understand and appreciate that. That if you're coming from one end of the country to the other and are relying on public transport, yeah, it can be a difficult one, and I fully do appreciate that. But from a selfish point of view, as a consumer of football, I fucking love it. I love Saturday night 8 p.m. games. I love any time we can play under the lights, to be honest. I just love football under the lights. So for me, I'd love the Saturday 8 p.m.s. And I'd even go a little step further. I'd love there to be a Sunday 6:30 slot as well, or a 7 p.m. slot on a Sunday for games. I think it'd be great. So that's my pitch and why I think we should see more of these Saturday 8 p.m. games. Certainly, if you offered me a Saturday 12:30 or a Saturday 8 p.m., I'm taking Saturday 8 o'clock every time. And even from just an atmospheric perspective, we've all seen it. It's tough to get any crowd anywhere in the country up for a 12:30 Saturday kickoff, even if it is a derby or even if it is, a game that means a lot. It's still 12:30 on a Saturday, and you're either dying with a hangover from the Friday or you haven't got going for the weekend yet, and maybe you're not in the finest of form. And if you're acting like me, you take a few hours to ease into the day anyway. So, for me, it was never a kickoff time I liked. Hated it. So yeah, do let us know. We'll vote on that one and we'll come back to it before the stream ends to see what you guys think. So, the podcast is up right now on Spotify. What we do these days is we put the full episode up on Spotify and then we put a couple of clips from it up on the YouTube channel. And that is what will be going out on the channel tomorrow. Connor will be here in the morning with a news video. And then we've got a couple of clips from the podcast that will be going out tomorrow evening. Tonight, when I finish the stream in about 15-20 minutes, we'll have the Anfield Agenda preview for the Newcastle game coming out and going live. So do let us know your thoughts on that one. And already we've had...
This video is sponsored by
wrong one. Sorry, my apologies. This one. Already we've had so many entries. I mean, last check it was over 1,500 or so entries into this giveaway. So if you haven't already, scan that QR code, join the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp and join the giveaway where we're going to be doing one every single month throughout 2026 with thanks to the Collector's Corner, where we're giving away a free signed item every single month. On top of that, if you'd like to get 20% off, if you see something on the Collector's Corner website that you like, you can use the code Anfield Agenda with the number 1 at the end of it to get yourself 20% off anything on the Collector's Corner. Right. How are we feeling as well, by the way, about the game on Saturday night? Do you want me to give you my preview score just before? Because I'm not going to give you the 11, so I'll give you the prediction. My score prediction, I went for a 3-3. Yeah. You should do a TikTok of a day in the life of a match day. That's a brilliant idea, Aaron. Yeah, really good idea, mate. And we are probably a month away from finishing the studio. So I think that's something I'd like to do as part of the kind of new studio side as well. Show people what it looks like behind the scenes and what a match day looks like for us. Yeah, really good idea, mate. Kaylin, thank you so much. Appreciate your support, Kaylin. Thank you. Yeah, so I've gone 3-3 for my prediction for the game. I think it's going to be one of those classic Liverpool Newcastle games with goals all over the shop. Now, I don't want us to draw the game, but that's my honest prediction of the score based off the lay of the land. Newcastle lost at home last week to Aston Villa. And so they're going to be wanting to get back to getting points in the league. They had a very credible draw against Paris Saint-Germain last night in the Champions League as well. So they're probably a little bit more tired than us. I would say our players, we were able to take a few players off a bit early last night and give them a bit of a rest up. So I'm hoping that has its benefits for us. If they play like PSV, we're cooked. Yeah, I still can't get my head around the fact that we lost 4-1 to PSV and Newcastle beat them 3-0. And then the PSV didn't even qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions League. That does feel a bit weird. Dougie Critchley said something earlier on X that is very well put. And the post was, it's funny to reflect on how people responded to Liverpool signing Hugo Ekitike in the summer. People acted as if it was a complete joke of a signing, that he was nowhere near good enough and he wasn't close to Isak's level. 13 goals, 4 assists now by the end of January. Dynamic, committed, versatile. For me, he's been one of the best signings anywhere in Europe this season. Given the pressure he's been under, signing weeks before Isak and then watching as Isak was ruled out long term, I think that's really impressive. And I would absolutely agree with that assessment. Now, I did not know what to expect from Hugo Ekitike person. I wasn't one that was writing him off. I wasn't one that was overly enthused. I was somewhat unsure what to expect. But ever since he's come to the club, he's just been a breath of fresh air on and off the pitch. An incredible signing, an incredible guy, and like Dougie said, one that certainly hit the ground running. Now, at least we didn't go as far, those that maybe didn't want him, as some of the Arsenal fans in starting a petition for the club not to sign a player. That was a special kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that assessment from Dougie was spot on. Reporter to Hugo Ekitike. Was the Newcastle transfer ever close? Ekitike, I made my choice. I knew where I wanted to come, and I'm where I wanted to come. The reporter then asked, he might get a bit of stick from their fans on Saturday, to which Ekitike said, I don't care. I play for Liverpool. I have my fans here. He gets it. He just gets it, doesn't he? He just gets it. Yeah. This piece here from the Daily Mail said Liverpool currently have no plans to bring Kostas Tsimikas back from his loan at Roma, according to the Mail. Aaron said, what I want to know, Craig, is why Slot is still in the job. Oh, mate, I have an answer I'd love to give you to that. Oh, God. If you were me, mate, and we were sitting here having a cup of coffee now, I'd give you an answer to that. That would leave you in no doubt of where my mind is. If I said that publicly, I'd probably be deplatformed. But let just me say this. Too many people have accepted mediocrity. No, I need to rewind that back. Too many people in influential positions have accepted mediocrity and made excuses for it, which has made people think that it's okay to see the failures we've seen this season. I ain't one of them, nor will I ever be. And I remember our conversations, and I remember the expectations, and I'm not willing to rewrite history to suit a new narrative that people are trying to push despite the evidence in front of your eyes. So like I've always said, question everything. Ask yourself, is what you're seeing tallying with what you're told is happening or what you're told to feel? Because we're all led to believe only a few weeks ago that there was this mad bond and there was a big love in with Arna. That's not the case. Now we're being led to believe that they're backing him. No, they're not. They're firing him at the end of the season at worst. All of this stuff is again insulting our intelligence as fans. So, like I said, I'd love to give you the answer off camera and bluntly, but if I gave it to you here on camera, I'd be deplatformed and probably in a little bit of trouble. Rolfie said, I love the late kickoffs. I actually hate the early kickoff times. Partly, a priority of my kids early in the day. Understand it's different for travelling fans. Yeah, I'm just somebody that keeps weird hours, Rolfie. So for me, I like the late kickoff times because one, it's under the lights and I love footy under the lights. And two, it structures my day better for me. It just works better for me as well. Itachi said, we beat Newcastle. Come on, the Reds. Well, hopefully we do, mate. Yeah, because, if we do, it sends us at least trending in the right direction. But if we don't, if we lost in particular, we're in big trouble. Because remember what comes after is Man City in the Premier League, which is going to be a difficult game anyway. But if you go into that difficult game and the need for the points is even greater and the jeopardy increases, so does the pressure. Are you sponsored by Adidas? Mate, I wish I could sit here and tell you that I didn't have to pay for every bit of Adidas clothing that I wear, but I absolutely am not sponsored by Adidas, and I'm just a fanboy. Always have been. When I met my wife and we started going out with each other, ever since we started together, this is now 25 years together. She has me on her phone as Adidas boy since we were 19 years of age. It's just kind of my thing. I just am an Adidas person. If you see me out and about, most likely as I'm wearing an Adidas top. Runners, that's trainers different. I mix between Adidas and Nike Air Max or Jordans, but nah, man, I fucking wish. I wish it didn't cost me as much as it has. Itachi says, I love Hugo. Do you really love Hugo? Or are you just saying that because you see him? Sorry, I had to get my little Anchorman moment in. I love Lamp. Has the new studio got a sponsor? No, but it's available if somebody wants to sponsor it. Absolutely, I'll sell the name and rights to the Anfield Agenda studio. If anybody wants to come on board and partner up with us for it, absolutely, it's available. Which Jordans do I have? I've got a few different pairs. I'm not geeky enough to know model numbers or anything like that. But yeah, I tend to buy things like that twice. So if I see a pair of like Air Jordans or a pair of runners that I like and I think are going to be a limited run, if the finances allow me at the time, I buy two pairs of them and I keep one up for the future. So I've got an old pair of Air Max Tempos that I bought. I've two pairs of. I've one for the here and now and one for the future. Because unlike most other things, your waist size can change or whatever, but your feet, they stay the same once you become an adult. So I often double buy my trainers, so I've got a pair for future Craig. Do you think Slot should be given time to rebuild in the summer? Rebuild what? Liverpool? No. If that's not, he shouldn't be here in the summer. He shouldn't be here now. He should be gone at this point. The fact that he is here now is a fucking disgrace, quite frankly. But no, he shouldn't be given anything to rebuild. But also, the player recruitment side is above him anyway. So, if we're talking about good or bad in the recruitment, then that's a Richard Hughes question. Or Richard Hughes' accountability issue. Do we get Elise? Oh, I don't know, man. I'd love to think there's a way. And after a signing Florian Wirtz, it's impossible for me to sit here and say no. Because I didn't think Wirtz was going to be possible. and that one happened. Didn't think we'd break the British transfer record twice in one window. I didn't think we'd break the British transfer record, let alone twice in one window. So, who knows? But I'll tell you this, we ain't getting them without Champions League football. That much I can tell you for damn sure. And like we are right now, we are, on the edge. Are we going to get Champions League football for next season? Who knows? We've got 15 games to find out. And like I said, when the damage is done, and if we are outside of it, it's too late to act and save it now. Or then, I think it can still be saved now, though, which is why I keep saying, bring in somebody right now to G these boys up and get some belief back into them, because the season can still be salvaged. Rather than having to hope Arne can pull a miracle out his arse, I think we should be proactive and at least then be ready for the start of next season. Because don't forget, if Arne got fired in the summer, this summer coming up, it's a World Cup summer anyway. So it's going to be a shortened summer for everybody with regard to the availability for windows and with regards to the availability of coaches working on the training ground with players in the summer. So if, for example, Alonso came in the summer, well, he has to wait till the players go to the World Cup, have their holidays after the World Cup, and then come back in to start working with them. And by that point, you're 6 weeks away from the season starting? So that's why I would say, do it now. Do it now. At least if you know Alonso's going to come in the summer, you can start planning accordingly. But get an interim in now to try and make sure that we steady the ship and make sure that we aren't outside the Champions League places for the next coach. Itachi said, Dom, Wirtz, Elise, Isak, Ekatike, tasty. Don't forget Rio. Don't forget Rio on that list, bro. Pablo said, I think Salah will leave this summer. Yeah, excuse me. Again, something we touched on the podcast, but let's say we don't make Champions League. Then I think Salah definitely leaves. Because remember, what Salah wants to do is still compete and win at the highest levels in Europe. So if we don't get Champions League, his last year contracted to the club, he won't have Champions League football. So he won't be able to compete at the highest level in Europe. So I think that would, again, make it more likely that he leaves next summer. So there's just, I could give you 15, 20 reasons why I think it's wrong to roll the dice and not act now on removing the head coach. But like I said, all I can keep saying is this is my view. And if you agree with it, cool. If you don't agree with it, well, we're going to have to wait and see what happens. I'd rather us get two young wingers like Fofana and Diamondi than get Elise. Doesn't work hard off the ball. So one of the things we do have to keep an eye on, bro, is experience. Because, Chelsea have gone down that route of mostly youngsters now, long contracts, and some instability because of a lot of changes in young footballers. Any successful team really has a heartbeat of experience in it as well. So Elise at that point, when Salah leaves, if it's in 2027, will be 25 years of age. So we'd have experience at World Cups, he'd have experience with Champions League, he'd have experience in the Bundesliga, the Premier League, and at 25. So we'd bring a wealth of experience in at such a good age and right in his prime. So I think we got to be careful as well about not making sure that we don't have some experience throughout the team. That's important to make sure that we do have that experience there. Like we've said, Milner came into the dressing room and brought a winning mentality in. Right, let's see. Time for Salah to move on. Being one of the all-time greats, but he's hitting the wall. Look, like I said, we don't know what's going to happen there. We'll have to wait and see. Definitely doesn't look like he's going anywhere this month, which is, good news. Because we need all hands to the pump player-wise. We can't be affording to worsen the squad. So, do you guys think if we don't make Champions League football, it's more likely that Salah would be looking for a move, or do you think it doesn't change anything? Just out of interest, because it was something, like I said, that popped up in the conversation with me and Connor on the podcast. I said that I think it probably increases the likelihood of him going if we don't get Champions League football, because he doesn't get to compete for that big prize that he wants. Oliver said he doesn't think it's change. I don't know, man. I can't see Salah being willing to play in the Europa League in what will probably be his last year with us. But again, we'll see, I guess. Salah must have got a long top and had to be attached to Wirtz. He seemed to have a better relationship yesterday. I don't know. I'm just glad he scored. It was a good goal from Mo yesterday as well. Nice to see the reverse of the Dominic Szoboszlai free kick, him assisting Mo, and it was a very good finish from Mo as well. No, I think it's less as he wants to help the club get back in the Champions League. That's a beautiful sentiment, Lewis. It really is. And there's another aspect to it, though, Lewis, that I haven't brought into it, and that's the 400 grand a week that Liverpool will be paying out when they don't have Champions League money coming in for that season. But I do love your sentiment about him wanting to help us get into it. That is a beautiful sentiment. You can't, hard to push back against that, mate. It's coming from a good place. Joe said, Go has me very worried after loss. We can't lose. We can't lose this game of the weekend, mate, but we're going to see what happens. It's going to be an interesting night on Saturday, and I hope that the best version of us shows up. So look, ladies and gents, let's bring to an end this poll. Do you like Saturday 8 p.m. kickoff time? 66% of people said yes, 33 or 34%, 34, sorry, said no. I will see you guys 6:45 on Saturday for the start of the watch along. Have a wonderful Friday. I won't be seeing you live tomorrow, as I said, as I'm going to be taking the day off. So if you haven't entered a giveaway, you can still do that by scanning the QR code and joining the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. And again, if you want to treat yourself to anything from the Collector's Corner, get yourself 20% off with our code Anfield Agenda with the number 1. And thank you to Surfshark as well, our longest serving sponsors. And we've just agreed an extension with Surfshark to take you right through 2026 as well. So thank you to them for being our sponsors. And I'm off to get a bit of well-earned rest and rest up the voice as well. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you on Saturday. Much love. Bye-bye.